Horror did not bring me to Yellow Submarine. The Beatles brought me to Yellow Submarine. I watched all of the Beatles films during all of TV's celebration of Paul McCartney's 50th birthday when I would have been 10, and I fell in love with what I now realise is 1968, in that it had come from very much the spirit of the age, or what they were trying to say about interaction and about society, but it was done through a load of surreal cartoons. And as far as I'm concerned, what's not to love? I just saw it for what it was at the time. But when I look back on how it got there, that's interesting to me too, because the cartoon had relatively little to do with the actual Beatles. They wrote the songs, and it wasn't just Yellow Submarine, the album, it was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which had been one of the most successful things to happen to them or anybody else. And had happened to them because Paul McCartney said to the others, let's have a sort of alter ego so that we feel we can go beyond who we think we're seen as, who we think we are. And a load of strange things came out of that. Now, it's odd for us to hear it in that way now, because we're so used to the idea that the mop tops and the psychedelically inclined later incarnation of it are just absolutely fixed in our national, international consciousness. But this was a really new thing for them. And what is interesting to me is then that cartoon became an alter ego of an alter ego. It was given to a bunch of people who weren't in the Beatles, and what they did wasn't necessarily what the Beatles would have done at all, but it was something that appealed massively to adults and children. It begins with my favourite title sequence ever.
Once upon a time, or maybe twice, there was an unearthly paradise called Pepperland. "80,000 leagues beneath the sea it lay, or lie, I'm not too sure."
And it begins as it goes on with absolutely unforgivable puns like that. What is so beautiful about it is funny. It is scary in the sense that the imagery really does stay with you. It is so ghostly. The Eleanor Rigby sequence at the beginning shows lots and lots of grey people animated to move in exactly the same way across Liverpool in the rain. The sun rises over the liver bird, so we know exactly where we are. And there are other symbols of time moving on, but people going round in circles. And not just the lyrics of Eleanor Rigby, but those pictures convey this incredible sense of loneliness and grey and isolation and nothing beyond it. And that grey, which is in our world, is what the Blue Meanies are trying to throw over Pepperland. And Pepperland is not our world. It is this possibly idealised version of maybe how our world wants to be or how we are in our minds. It's pretty much up to the viewer to decide that. So just as the cartoon was bigger and other than the Beatles, the horror imagery, the Beatles have to cross the sea of time and then the sea of monsters, which comes up with some of these brilliant, surreal creatures made of different things. And they're all visual jokes that adults and children can appreciate in the same way, like the fish that swims with arms the way we would swim. The Hoover beast that it's a vacuum out of its nose and it hoovers things up, and then when it runs out of things to hoover up, it hoovers up itself. And that kind of comes in with the Eleanor Rigby stuff of there's this idea of sort of that nastiness ends in this bleak depression, and that words of love and colour and trying to sort of give rather than suck, interesting, rather than take away is kind of what's going on through the ideology of it and the visual imagery of it. And needless to say, the Beatles win. They come back and they find the real Sgt. Pepper inside one of these glass balls that the Blue Meanies have thrown at everybody to make them go grey and stop having personalities and stop having music. And that is how Pepperland is won, by bringing back the language of music and colour. And that is all very, very beautiful. But what it really is really scary, because they're all slightly odd combinations of real life. It's all taking bits of things that are familiar and bits of things that are unfamiliar. What makes Yellow Submarine a horror film for me is that the nastiest images come up so eloquently where you least expect them, just before they leave Pepperland, when old Fred goes off in the submarine and everything is sort of jokey in terms of how it's being expressed, but you can see that there's very real danger, and that the mayor is saying he will sit down and play that violin even as these monsters are coming towards him. And bear in mind that 68, Second World War, not so far away. The images of although they're ridiculous, although they're funny, the bonkers, as they are called, there's some language that would definitely be changed now because it comes across as very, very funny in ways it doesn't know about. It has the bonkers drop their apples on the Lord Mayor, and he turns grey and his head goes down, and he drops his violin, and there's no more music, and then off the submarine goes to our world to try and find help. It's very, very nasty. If you imagine, you don't have to be a child watching that to sort of feel that coldness, that sense of life having been stolen from this character, is very cold and very frightening. And then everything in the Eleanor Rigby sequence, not least the guy trapped in the phone box, I didn't mention that earlier, so he's forever trapped in the phone box hoping he'll get out, and those loops of nothing ever getting better make Eleanor Rigby the most lonely sequence. And while it doesn't frighten me in the way that blood-curdling screams might frighten me, the idea of being that lonely and that cut off forever is something that all humans are frightened of. And contrasting those sequences with the colour and the imagination and the company that comes with it later, it's a really good picture of human psychology, and it's utterly surreal and very beautiful and very funny.